Welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast. My name is Dr. Patty Robbie Keller, and I'm the Sports Administration Program Director at Boston College. I manage the Masters in Sports Administration. What I love about our program and leading our program is that all our faculty work in sports. Our students get the excellent experience that they bring to the table, the education, and their network. So when our students leave our program, most of them are already set up with a job in sports. We give you open opportunities to find so many different avenues to work in sport. Our program is very explosive and dynamic, and we hope you come and check us out. Our entire program is $42,000 a year, and it can be done in 18 months, online or in person. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the episode.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive leadership in college athletics. Our guest today is Otis Wiley. Otis is the general manager for Michigan State Properties. Greetings, Otis. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. It's always good to have a former Spartan dog
100%.
Reaching out and, talking through, all this craziness of athletics, but we embrace the chaos. So I'm glad you have me on, man.
Oh, yes, sir. Now, I just got to correct you. I am not a former Spartan dog. I am a Spartan dog, right? We are Spartans for life. You know that.
You're right. Yeah.
It's hilarious.
You're right.
So Michigan State Properties, which is a part of Playfly, the Playfly network, right?
Correct. Yep.
Your experience, you did some work with Learfield and you did some work in fundraising after you finished playing. So your revenue generation, let's bring in a loop so we can support whatever needs to be supported, right? Is kind of the underlying experience you have and what you're currently doing. Is that how you would define the work you do?
I would say that, yeah. First opportunity to get into at collegiate athletics, Mark Hollis, obviously our former AD at Michigan State, saw me on the sideline of the spring game, as we always come back to support our program. And I always randomly that he's just walked past me and said, what is it going to take for me to hire you? And no one's ever even addressed that to me, right? So I'm thinking it's a joke, but also, I took some seriousness in that statement. So followed up with him and, kind of asked him what did he have in mind, because, I did want to be an AD, right? That was something that, I felt like once I learned the whole org chart and like this business of athletics, I was like, I think I am suited for that. So he said, in order to be a great AD, you got to bring in dollars. You got to secure fundraising in dollars. And so started out as a fundraiser. I've always been broke my whole life, so it's easy for me to go and ask for money. Yeah. But jokingly, in all seriousness, that was my avenue to learn, where all the financials are going. You don't know when you're playing where all the financials are going. And so that opened my eyes to the business of how many dollars and the amount we were securing and where that would go to each sport. That gave me some also eyes in these sports that don't receive that much and how much they need to even get some generation of revenue. So that it gave me an open window to like where I wanted to go inside of athletics.
Did you try the NFL or any kind of professional ball after you finished?
Yeah, I tried, man. Short lived. NFL stands for not for long, right? So, I got invited to the combine, but as soon as my senior year, I had to have surgery on my knee, so I had to have a quick scope and the wear and tear. Never had surgery on my knee. So that quickly started. One knee was the first one. It was right before combine. I still went to the combine in Indianapolis. Still did the interviews.
Yeah.
I do believe if I would be able to worked out and test, it would probably be a different story. That's just how competitive and confident I feel like I am in it. But God has a different way of bringing you back to where you need to really be at from a plan standpoint. So I embraced it, and it was a short 5 surgeries later.
Yeah.
Because never can get back to go ahead.
So that spring game when Mark Hollis approached you, that was the spring after your last football season?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
that was like 2012. 2012 was where I officially was like, you know what? I can't chase this dream broke. And, I also was still, I had just finished up my degree because I had left with like a semester, a full year left of academics calendar year. So I was still, doing classes and getting my degree completed. And so um, my wife basically set me down, or fiance at the time, she set me down. Was like, look, either you in or you out.
Yeah, like what is you
And,
doing here, bro?
and for me, that was a full out, like, you know what, I need to get my degree. And Coach D'Antonio was a guy that kept on guys who didn't finish, and was like, finish what you started, complete the circle. And then you realize, like, guys that need to complete the circle gives APR points back for the future, right? So you need to do your part.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So
Part of
you
the
learned
whole,
that
right?
you learned that really quick too.
Yeah, it's interesting, and the reason why I asked that line of questioning is because you're a year out from being a student athlete, and then you get into this fundraising job, and you get exposed to how the money in college athletics works, and it's like this is like probably eye opening for you. Like, whoa, I just was playing, it wasn't any, but now you're telling me that multi-millions of dollars are going here and going there, and this is supporting that, and this is not bringing anything, but that's just as important. Like that's a seemed like it would have been an eye-opening and probably a educating experience for you.
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like I was the conduit of like answering and educating our fellow teammates.
Yeah, 100%.
Especially, they always want to say pay it forward and give it back to what the program gave to you, this university, and that was the base of foundation of fundraising and asking for gifts and soliciting those gifts, because you gotta give a nice heartstring and like tug to your alma mater. But essentially, these dollars do help. These dollars help student athlete experience, scholarships, and those unfortunate that can't get a full ride. Like this also helps too. So it gave me a lot of motivation to go out there and go get the dollars for specifically the sports too that didn't get it all right.
Yeah.
So that was it.
I would have loved to been. I don't know if I needed that type of education right out of playing, because I was trying to exist in a corporate world to my own failure, right? But I would have liked to be somebody a year or two younger than you, still on the team, still connected to you, while you're getting this exposure, so I can pick your brain on how this works. How would I need to be thinking about? Because I knew I wasn't going to the NFL. I knew that that was it, scout teamer for life, right? And so I would have loved to pick your brain as a younger player while you were working connected that close. Because I don't know who was fundraising for Michigan State when I was playing. I doubt it was any young black men, you know what I mean, kind of situation.
Yeah.
So
I feel like Martin Jarman was here. He was here when I was here, but I think we're a few years.
I finished in
4 years
01.
apart.
I finished in 2001.
Yeah, we're 4 years. So we're 4 years apart. I believe Martin was here during that time as a fundraising Spartan Fund.
What year did you finish?
I finished in 08, but in 05, 06, he was still here.
Okay.
As a fundraiser, so I think he did about 5 to 6 years.
Okay,
so
he might have just got there to state when okay, that's right. I didn't know him. You know what I mean? Didn't have any exposure.
Yeah, and I knew him. I seen him, like, because you start to pay attention once that clock starts to wind down, and like, to your point, like, I know NFL is a plan, but I'm not putting all my eggs in this basket because you've got a lot of wear and tear on the body. I started to figure out. I knew there through the transition. I was there when Ron Mason got fired. Actually, I was there when Coach John L. Smith got fired. So that was my first interaction with President Simon at the time, and that was my first time really seeing like leadership and who's who. Like, you just hear names, right? But then you start to see here's the present folk that are coming here to make sure the program's good. That's when I fully like met Mark Hollis, and really just the way you play the game. They kind of just naturally draw to you, and I feel like I play the game with a high level of just excitement, enjoyment, pure like just I'm glad to be out here, right? And so that gives you some, I don't know, some opportunity to win some hearts, I think. So, after that last bowl game when we played Georgia and we lost, should have won that. He was in the locker room. He said, "I don't know why my daughters and my kids and my wife love you. I don't understand it." He's always joking, right? But he's anything you need, do not hesitate to reach out. And I always held that dear to my heart. Like, in any times the downwards of trying to find your way in corporate America, what job, what's going to be my lane, I'll always make sure to ping him, and it wasn't like, now people just obviously want to get the next step and like use you type deal. But no, I really wanted to pick his brain. Like, what do I need to do to get to a position to set myself up for success and be an AD or just even a leader? Like, what do I need to do? And that he took the time, and I'm appreciative of him to this day, still connected with him, that he took the time to really pour into someone who wore the green and white, brought some revenue in, from a standpoint. But he's all about, helping Spartans out. And I think that's what it's all about too.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. I had a similar experience. When I left, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but what I did try to do initially was to get into coaching. Didn't work, but I did Coach Antonio vouched for me, introduced me to people, Coach Manny, wherever I needed from Coach Manny. Then when I got to the AFCA in terms of a reference, they all stepped up immediately, and vouched for the character of what I did and all that kind of thing. So yeah, 100% Spartans supporting Spartans is of the utmost importance. So you go from Michigan State, there's a stint down at SMU, and then up to Learfield. So you were with Learfield at the NCAA, and I guess over time your portfolio included other organizations like the National Association of Basketball Coaches, Women's Basketball Coaches Association, Lead One, the National Football Foundation, and other organizations. Tell me about that experience and how that helped feed into your ability to bring in revenue.
Yeah. So, you remember Tim Pernetti. Tim Pernetti was then the president of IMG College. So, we have IMG Academy, which is our high school division in Bradenton. And then you have college, which was selling multimedia rights and having schools. They had the big schools. And then I was hired, I think year 2 is when you start to hear the rumblings of this merger of Learfield IMG. I quickly, Lead One was the first one like I really took ownership of, and like that was the first year we had the deal with, or had the rights to that body, the governing body of athletic directors. And so I was able to sell, like we had a goal of like year 1, here's the goal we needed to get to. And I just learned like the financials of like, we know IMG's paying a rights fee. So my goal is to exceed that and some, so that, you make a little bit of money back, but also you cover expenses. I started to learn the kind of the nooks and crannies of like everything setting up from a multimedia rights. I quickly learned where, you got to do a little bit more, especially for a Lead One group like that, because it's very, very exclusive group. Is a very high affinity group. So you can't just go out and get brands that typically don't make sense. Like, get a Pizza Hut deal and like we got pizzas, right? So, you got the athletic director endemic companies. Like you got the ones that want to really work on, a fundraising arm, or you had, Under Armour, anybody, you had the apparel companies, because you had schools that were Under Armour, some Adidas, some Nike. So you had some of that. And you wanted to get like everyone that wanted to have a play or hand in it. They obviously want speaking opportunities, and working with Tom McMillan, we want to keep it sacred from a programming standpoint, but you got to kind of fight tooth and nail of like, look, this CEO is going to commit X amount of dollars. They need to have some type of intro, right? Like even if it's intro to a lunch or into a program, somebody be on the panelist to connect with. Like they need some type of inclusion to make the dollars work. So that helped me. Like I did everything from A to Z: secure the deal, activate, work on planning, set up interviews, set up everything. So that learned a lot, where it started from the ground floor, and it kind of gave me the skill set to then take it to the next level of, we had the National Football Foundation. So all in all, like that's the dream of every former football player, that, you want to be in the Hall of Fame, College Football Hall of Fame. And that was the big event of having that dinner in New York at the time. And so you kind of be able to see that. My year 1 was going to New York, and you're sitting at the table and Peyton Manning gets inducted. You had Jerry Jones. I was able to meet my idol in Ronnie Lott, right? Like he's sitting next to the table. So like these places that I've probably surely never thought I would be in the room, this opportunity allowed me to get in the room. Once I crossed over from fundraising to IMG, then to Learfield, I'm amongst people that, you know, you admire across the states or across the nation, and they're in the room with you. And so at some point, it's you just thank God that you're in it, but you also still think about it's all about revenue.
Yeah, it's all about revenue,
So,
right? That's excellent.
so I learned a lot from managing these governing bodies, because you got to do more, because there's certain events tied to a corporate partnership. And so you got to really get creative. You got to be persistent. You got to be aggressive, because, you know, there's 1,000 other people like me calling on this same person, and trying to win those dollars. And so you got to be strategic how I differentiate myself or whatever I'm presenting to them. I got to differentiate it to a certain standpoint to win those dollars. So I learned a lot, man. It was like I had no marketing background, but sales is sales. And I think that's Tim Pernetti told me, like, if you can sell, you can sell. You can learn whatever we're selling in the content and the assets. But like, if you're a good seller, you're a good seller. It doesn't matter what you touch. So I always kept that to heart as well.
Yeah, which is important. And so you were the I don't know if it was general manager at the time, but wasn't NCA one of the properties?
Oh, I was associate GM so I was under. So we had a GM and then we had a VP, but I was a third in line, so associate GM. So I was the main point on the WBCA business and Lead One business. And then we all tapped into working for the NABC and then the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. We call it cross-selling. So we all worked cohesive. It was like a 4-man team.
Right. So let me tell you where I'm confused at.
Go ahead.
So being in the group that was representing, when we say NCAA, do we mean the NCAA including and all these other organizations? I mean, so
yeah, so
that's where I'm confused.
Good question. So the NCAA owns the rights to the NABC, WBCA.
Oh, okay. That's where I was missing that information. Got it. Yep.
Yeah, and so when we come in, it's like, well, the NCAA doesn't have, not say the bandwidth, they did, but they do. Is okay, we're going to hire a third-party marketing firm, or us, or IMG, Learfield at the time, to monetize these rights.
I got it.
So NCAA is paying a direct fee yearly. Well, the goal is to go out and, like I said, increase those dollars to make it, you know,
exactly
positive.
Right, to cover the cost of that fee and get more. Right,
correct.
Exactly. No, it makes a lot of sense now. So you're at Michigan State now, just over 2 years, right? As you say, you're going into your third season. Of course, we always think seasons as football players. Michigan State properties, and this is a Playfly property. And were you at Michigan State when they switched over from, because they did everything in-house initially, right? And then they decided to bring
it. Last school in the nation to go, I would say last Power 5, I feel like, school to go.
That was in-house.
To go external. It was in-house. And so I think at the time I was here when Mark was having the conversations on to monetize and like set this up with Fox Sports. So I think they had an RFP, they had IMG, they had Learfield, they had Fox Sports, and I think some other JMIs of the world. They all had tapped in to try to win the business, and Fox Sports was the strongest offer. And so I was in Dallas when they inked it, because in 2016 is when Fox Sports took over. And then from that 2016 to 21 was Fox Sports and Playfly during COVID. Built Michael Schreiber, our CEO, built a strong plan to get into college sports and all about digital media, about innovation. Playfly was the name, and then he went out and purchased and bought Fox Sports and Outfront, joined them into one. So that's why you see, we've been in the game for 20 plus years on the college property standpoint, but the entity Playfly is only 3 years old. So as we grow, it's been a good ride for the years of I've been a part of it.
Yeah, which is excellent. So general manager of Michigan State Properties, it's always good to be back home, right? In terms of being on campus, being a Spartan.
It is.
it probably makes it a little easier to sell things if you do have to sell things, but you still got to convince people to give you their money, and then you provide them with some type of value. Talk to me about your experience there in 2 years. Really two things. Biggest celebration, maybe the biggest accomplishment you have made in terms of businesses or something like that, and the biggest challenge and how you overcame that challenge.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a great question. Biggest celebrate like to celebrate. Um, I would say we more so the transition was I was very excited because you're coming back home and you've been away from your home or where you kind of grew up as a man for 7 years. So coming back, kind of have new skill set you've learned. You've learned kind of how to do things. You've learned what not to do. You learn how to really be a better strategic planner and thinker. And so when I got here, it was the property was at a healthy place. When I say healthy, they were trending of like hitting goal already. So I came in where I was able to focus on kind of mending our relationship with Michigan State athletics. So people, when I got here, I had to really go against not being Otis Wiley Spartan Fund, because that's how I built, my reputation on a standpoint of donors knowing who, one, I'm a player, former player, but also I was a Spartan Fund. So when I came in, everyone thinks I'm in-house, I'm athletics. And it's like, I am, but I'm more so vendor and Michigan State is a client. So I kind of had to
Delineate.
educate and kind of do that awareness. And still have to do that to some element right
When
now.
you said
But
you said mending the relationship, tell me about that.
yeah, so there was a lot of
Okay.
transition.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Throughout the Fox Sports relationship, there's a lot of transition. ADs, presidents, and Michigan State
Yeah,
went through
all the things.
the Nasser issues, and then you had just a lot of transition where my predecessor you know had to be he had to be the bad, not the bad guy, but he had to be the value prop guy. So when he came in and had to clean house on value proposition, he had to ruffle some feathers and really get this property to a value proposition that's going to be beneficial for Fox Sports at the time, and then also Playfly. So me coming in, there's a lot of some deals that aren't as, I would say, conventional, or that are outside the box brands. He got done, and it was all about, like you said, revenue. So the kind of relationship of like, not trust, but you had to know exactly that you had Michigan State's branding and like who they are at top of mind when you're out in the
Right.
market. And so for me, it was to be able to be like bridging that gap of a cohesive team of, yes, we are the MMR marketing arm, but we also make sure we're educating, and we're also keeping everyone in the loop, and who's who in athletics and who's on our staff. So I had to come in really clean that up of like, here's who we are, and we're not just out in the market selling hot dogs and burgers and like you not knowing who we're selling to. I think that was kind of me cleaning that up. Not that it was a bad operation. It was just you had to really fine tune it so that we can get on a better
Which makes a
trust
lot of sense.
factor.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'll celebrate that, because I had to really dive in, deep, and like understand what happened in the past, and then, really dissect what's going to work moving forward. And then you still got to fine tune things as you keep moving on, and still maybe some hiccups along the way. But it's all about one team. That was my whole mindset. Like, look, I know we're separate entities, we're external, but in my mind, we're one team out in the market. And so if you see anyone who may be inside athletics, or you see anybody on my staff, we should be talking the same thing, same tone. But yeah, that's kind of where I celebrate. That is very, very good for me personally as a leader, being the general manager, and then seeing my staff see me do that. Of like, sometimes you got to fight some things that you didn't think you had to fight, or you just really hone in on like let's mutually agree to disagree on some things, but also what's going to be best for Michigan State.
Yeah, that could almost be your first challenge too. I mean, biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges you face too. You know what I mean? And you get through
Yeah,
it,
for
and the
sure.
challenge becomes a celebration. Is
For
there
sure.
anything else though you would consider a challenge that you were able to overcome as you worked over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows, man, we had national news last season, right? And it felt like it was just back to back,
Just
just,
hitting
things
newsline,
happening.
headline.
So
Yeah.
personally, you kind of go back and forth of like, man, my alma mater is like, not say disappointments, but just like, I feel like we should be way better, or we should be better than where we are. But there was some pains there where you had to like really go and be the voice in the corporate partnership family, right? Like some of these people, they may have lost trust in what we're doing here is really just speaking truth to, not lies, but
Mm-hmm.
just truth, just
Yep.
speaking truth,
Speaking truth.
like in how we value partnerships. We value you as a family member in this family of supporting Michigan State. Thank you for sticking with us in these tough times. And some of those brands walked away, when it happened. And so for me, it's, the dollars matter. Revenue. This is back to revenue. Like we have a goal that we have to get to, and you know, with all that happening, that's like force majeure. It's out of our control. But how do I set it up, or how do we set this up on our team to combat that with just being aggressively out in the market and competing? And that was a challenge. It was challenging of going to sleep, waking up to this news, and now you have to be in crisis risk management, and you got to figure out what to do to make sure we put a bulletproof plan together that won't affect us. I think that was a huge challenge that we still fight to this day, but we're in
Yeah.
a better place for
100%. Yeah.
sure.
I mean, of course, all of us on the outside looking in went through the same heartbreak. Probably not as deep as this because you were there. But what I wonder about your role, general manager, is I wonder about creativity and bringing creativity to the job that you and your team do there. I think you came up with This is Sparta, kind of a podcast, IG Live type situation that came out, and a lot of us Spartans who have graduated or moved on from competing like to hear from older people, younger people. You're working on some new creativity things. I just wonder, how much do you just have the leeway to be as creative as possible? Is there frameworks that come from Playfly? Like, tell me about that aspect of the role you're in, which people such as you face across the
Yeah.
country who are on Playfly properties. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you have the best part about Playfly is that it's all about innovation. It's all about people. We call them our Piper values. It's people, innovation, partnerships, empathy, and results, right? And so focusing on those things of like when you have a CEO, when you have leadership who's all about driving revenue, and if innovation comes with the plan of action to drive incremental or additional revenue,
Go for it.
there's never like a hesitation. Now, when it comes to like budgets and you know OpEx, CapEx budgets, like it has to make sense, right? But I do have the autonomy to to be innovative when it comes to our partnerships and assets. So that's one thing where I can see something or like visualize something like this would actually be a great idea for specific partner, like say auto owners. Like this would be a perfect asset. Let me see what they think. If I hit our point of contact up and say, here's what we're thinking. Here's what is an opportunity. Would you be open to this? I think that is where I have full flexibility to really be creative of ideating with the partners or with potential partners coming in. And everyone's going digital, right? This probably better than anybody. Like digital impressions, viewership matters. Like, and how do you increase that? How you differentiate from other sports or other schools and other properties? And that's one thing that we're heavily, for FY25 as a goal is digital sales. So that's why you see things of like, we're going to extend some things on our radio shows that, can capture the audience on social and digital, and not just sit there with radio. We want to obviously get more eyes and ears hearing about our sports, which also gives opportunity or platforms for the partners that are paying for these platforms as well. So in a nutshell, I do have creativity, autonomy to be creative. Still work with my VPs and Christy and leadership team. But
How
I think that's
how
it.
big is your team at State, the Michigan State Properties team?
We have
10 people.
10 staff members. So I got 4 sellers that are actively 100% selling. Then we got 3 partner service managers. And then we have a group of interns that we circulate throughout the year. Some stays on for the full year, depending on the years in school, or we'll have seasonal semester interns. But we treat our interns as coordinators. Like, it's not just your regular internship. We can throw you right into the fire and you find out how to really work, because that's how I learned, is trial by error. Yes, you still got to work with us, but I trust that you are a young adult to bring in some of your expertise and help us get to the goal.
The creativity you talked about, is that a part of the culture amongst the staff that you have with Playfly? I mean, with the Michigan State Properties?
Yeah, it is. And there's some things that
Okay.
we create. You still got to get a little bit of stamp of approval if it's something that's not done before, because here we have a team who helps activate our partnerships and our contract assets. But then you have internal marketing and fan engagement who help us activate a lot of, majority of our assets and these partnerships. So if it's something new, creative, then, we work with internal marketing to get buy-in before we kind of go to market on that, because you don't want to sell something that you created without them understanding and knowing it. And because if you do that, there's obviously some friction, or there's maybe some pushback because it's never been done before, or we don't have that capability. So you got to do a lot of work behind the scenes to hopefully get to that common thread and goal. Yep.
You think about you as a leader, 10 people working for you, young people, you get the people who are in these full-time roles around you. I wonder how you, especially in a position where revenue is the primary, right? I wonder how you evaluate yourself. Is it all numbers, or tell me how you're evaluated, by the people you report to, either Michigan State, Playfly, however you do it, but then also how you evaluate yourself in terms of being successful in that role.
Yeah. As a student athlete, numbers don't lie, clearly, right? So I'm looking at my board right now. I have threshold benchmarks for each month,
quantifiable,
right? So you're tracking, you're trending. Yes, that's
100%.
the forefront of my mind daily, right? Nonstop. Now there are the ways I can influence the games. As a player, I kind of think about how can you influence the game without physically, making the play. Hey, I make sure I cover my guy, or, I am a cheerleader of, people that are on the team that are making plays and have a great game. I look at there's small wins that may not be can be tracked by the X's and O's of the revenue. It's platforms that we may have created, Playfly, and, go over into athletics and enhance or add on to our suite of services we provide to Michigan State. Those are the wins that you can track on. Personally, I've always been a lead by example guy. I've never been a rah guy in speaking. No, I can speak, but I lead by example. Practice what you preach is very something that I hang my hat on, right? So I can't go and tell them, hey, I need you to go out and sell more, do this, do that. And I've never done that as a seller now, which I have done it. So what I'm trying to get to the team is, look, we got to be aggressive and patiently aggressive, because if you're not aggressive, then you're missing these budget timelines on some of these brands and these agencies that you won't get the dollars. You won't win the dollars. So you got to be aggressive. This is when you win championships. Is May, June, July, right? Because kickoff is really our target to be at 100% to go. Because once you get there, there's nothing but icing on the cake. as basketball season starts. You got volleyball, you got hockey and all that. So that's the goal, is you want to get to go by kickoff. And when you do that, like, that's when the train is rolling. Like, it's strictly going smooth sail on cruise control, and you're able to then go to the next fiscal year. If you hit goal, then you can able to turn the page, still trying to sell, but then getting years and years out of getting business where you can then put like a cushion of attrition that happens everywhere. So you just want to make sure you have something to fall back on when some of these brands say, you know what, our timeline is exhausted on this partnership and we're going to move forward with a different direction. Well, I'd rather have people that have built it up so that when that does fall off, it doesn't hit us hard. So that's where you constantly just mentally building plays.
Right. How far out, when you get through this June and July, how far out in terms of years do you want to be?
I mean, look, I always want to be a year ahead, right? And so it's really tough because I mean, brands are getting smart. No, I say brands, they always been smart, but dollars come with, you need immediate ROI. The results are now. Some brands are here because they love Michigan State and they will always be here, have historically been here. But you got others that you try to get them in multi-year deals so that you don't have to keep doing this every year, because we have some of those single year deals. But, I'm a firm believer you can't activate one thing in 1 year and expect, because you got to consistently have this system going each year. So we try to do our best to get multi-year deals so that it allows us to focus on growing our brands and our families and more revenue. I honestly, if you're 2 years out, that's also like, no one's 2 years out, in my opinion, but mentally you want to get to that safe space of like being that far out, knowing that you're going to hit goal already in the next fiscal year. So, like, let's keep bringing
it on. Yeah.
these opportunities, right? Yep. Then you can focus on bringing in, we call them whales, right? Bringing in people that have a big type budget that's going to really move the needle. Because that takes longer. The bigger deals take longer to vet and to go back and forth and get to the common mutual agreement and contract. So in order to do that, we want to make sure we're at goal, because we're not spinning our wheels, and this deal I can focus on 6 months, but it won't come into the next fiscal FY26. So that's always in my mind. As you hear me talking, that's just always in my mind daily. Is how do I make sure I set this up? Coach D always says, make sure you leave the place better than what you found it. So that's always been my goal. Like, if this shelf life is expired for me as a GM, I know I've done all that I've done and could in my bandwidth to get us to a place that the next person coming in could easily step in and take it to a next level, if that makes sense.
Make it happen where you want to happen. I'll ask this last question, then we'll wrap. We're in a leadership position. You have how you consider yourself as a leader, and then you also have the reality of the people you lead, how they consider you. So I wonder, can you tell me where you are in terms of how you consider yourself, but then where you think they perceive you as a leader, the people you work with?
Yeah. That's a good one there. I would say, I think people view me as a servant leader.
Okay.
I feel like I'm a great boss to work for, because I've worked for great bosses. My previous boss, he was in the trenches with me, right? Like, I think that was what I enjoyed more about, when I was with Lear. Not say enjoyed more, but I enjoyed working with the crew I worked with that got me to this space here. So, credits to Mike Kohler and Daryl Morton at the NCAA under Learfield is that, we were in the trenches together and we worked to get to the goal, right? And there was not a ego there. This was a we thing. And so for me, I've always came into this of like, this is we. Like, there's no I, there's no me. This is we. And I feel like my team sees that, and I'm in a phase where I got young kids, right? So the work-life balance truly is something that I pride myself on, of, I know this majority of this work is going to take over my life, but I encourage my staff, like, you got to make sure you balance too. And like this is 80% of our world right now of job. So you got to enjoy the job too, but I definitely don't want anyone to put this job over their lives, right? This is kind of your means to income, supporting your families, but you also got to be passionate about this job too. So I would say my people outside looking in, if you talk to anybody that works under me or works with me, there's never bad days for me, right? That's like, I get to work in sports. So I had a father who worked in Federal Express for 28 years. That's hard work, for me. Like the General Motors line, like my family's all from General Motors on the line. That's hard work. Like for me, like we're not doing hard work. So you got to look at those blessings. You got to look at those things as a leader of like, I thank God I'm here at this spot, but how do I help encourage and build people that are reporting to me, but also people that are coming to the nucleus of Otis Wiley and general manager, Michigan State Sports Properties. They get the same Otis than, not a high up there type guy. I'm not that type of guy. Like I'm down to earth from Flint, Michigan, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like
right here with
I'm blessed to be here. So
you feel like your staff sees you in the way you just described yourself.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm all about getting to the money. But I'm also not going to lose who I am for it either. But they see me in the trenches. Like they see me working. I'm not just over top and coming in and telling them what to do. I'm all about input. I'm all about, like, everyone has to feel good, especially with our number and how we put numbers out there. Like, we're leaning on each other to get to the goal. So if someone's slacking or someone's like having a hard time, well, we're going to bring them up with us, or we're going to help to build and strengthen that link, because, you are as strong as your weakest link. Coach Manning clearly embedded that to us all, right? So take what you learned from past and put it to what we're doing now, and hopefully build a solid plan for the future.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well, Otis, I mean, I'm always happy to see Spartans in place and doing high level things, especially when you talk about being in place at Michigan State. I really appreciate you joining us here on the What Question Leadership podcast.
No, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for reaching out, and anytime.
Yes, sir. Go green.
Go white.
That was Otis Wiley. He's the general manager of Michigan State Properties. And of course, I am Ty Brown with one question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.